So, in yesterday's class, we were discussing about we were analyzing beams we were analyzing members which are subjected to bending. We identified the main component, that is the normal stress acting in the beam. We calculated the deformation. The beam deforms along the arc of a circle, and the normal strain is dependent on the curvature and the distance y from the neutral axis. So we also uh, found the bending moment, relation between the stress and the bending moment. So all those things we can summarize with this simple formula: sigma x by minus y is E by rho, and is equal to m by I. So rho is the radius of curvature of the arc, and I is the moment of inertia of the area cross section about the neutral axis. So the neutral axis is the axis which passes through the centroid of the cross sectional area, and I is the second moment of area. So with this, you can remember this formula, and we'll solve some very simple examples where we will find the normal stresses, normal strains, or radius of curvature, or the bending moments. So here we have a beam. It has a rectangular cross section. So the width of the beam is 20 millimeters, height is 60 millimeters. The yield stress of the material is 250 megapascal. So this beam is subjected to bending moment. It is a positive bending moment, so this beam will sag. So the top fiber will be in compression, and bottom fiber will be in tension. So we are asked to find the bending moment M for which the bar will yield. Means there will be a moment M when the top fiber or the bottom fiber will start yielding. So we have to find that moment. So to begin the problem, first we'll look at that cross section. So as the cross section is rectangular. So here I made a small error. This is 20 units. Width is 20. I made a small, yeah, and height is 60. So the centroid is lies at a distance of h by 2, that is half the depth. So this is a centroid C, and so the neutral axis will pass through the centroid. So we draw a neutral axis, horizontal axis, which will pass through the centroid. So the area of the cross section is ABH, and we have to find the moment of inertia of this rectangular cross section above the neutral axis. So we already know from engineering mechanics what is the moment of inertia of this rectangular cross section above this centroidal axis. It is BH cubed by 12. So we can find the I value about the neutral axis, 20 into 60 cubed by 12, which will give 360 into 10 power 3. Again, I made an error here. It should be millimeter power 4. So because the 4 dimensions are multiplying, so we'll have millimeter power 4. Now what is asked is we have to find the momentum which causes the bar to yield. So we can apply our formula because C1 and C2 are equal. So the maximum compressive stress at the top will be equal to the maximum tensile stress at the bottom. So sigma bottom by sigma, so we are applying basically this formula: sigma x by minus y is equal to m by I. So sigma bottom by C2 is equal to sigma top by C1 is equal to m by I. So when these stress reach the yield stress, so the yield stress is 250, so we can find the corresponding moment. So sigma yield by C1 and C2 is h by 2, which is 30, and m by I. So we can calculate m is equal to here megapascal. 1 megapascal is 1 Newton per millimeter square. So the units we are expressing in terms of Newton and millimeter for yield stress, and height is expressed again in millimeter. Moment of inertia I also is expressed in terms of millimeter. So here this is millimeter power 4. Yeah. So what we will get, 250, that is a yield stress, into 360 into 10 power 3, that is the I value, divided by 30. So the answer we will get as 3 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter, because all the units are in Newton and millimeter. Finally we will get the moment as length into the force, so Newton millimeter. So what we can do, we can have 1 Newton which is we can have 1 kilonewton meter. So 1 kilonewton meter is 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. So we can write it as applied moment will be 3 times 3 kilonewton meter. Okay, so here 10 power 3 Newton and 1 meter is 10 power 3 millimeter. So so that's how the 10 power 6 factor is coming. So this is a very simple application of this concept for analyzing the stresses in the beams and finding the corresponding moments. So the first step was to find the neutral axis location, that is find the centroid and then locate the neutral axis. Then next step is finding the moment of inertia. Once you find the moment of inertia, then you can apply the stress you can apply the stress formula, flexure formula, and find the moment. Yeah. So we'll solve another problem and it involves same thing. We'll find the maximum tensile stress, maximum compressive stress, and also the bending moments. So here an aluminum rod with a semicircular cross section of radius 12 millimeters is bent into the shape of a circular arc of mean radius rho, which is 2.5 meters. So material has Young's modulus 70 GPa, and what is given, the flat face of the rod is turned towards the center of curvature of the arc. So we are asked to find what is the maximum tensile stress and maximum compressive stress in the rod. So what is given is this is an aluminum rod and it has a semicircular cross section. So we are drawing that cross section here. This is a semicircle, and the semicircular cross section has radius r is equal to 12 millimeters. Now the semicircular cross section is bent into the shape of a circular arc, and what is given, the flat face of the rod is turned towards the center of curvature. So this is the bent shapes. It is bent into a circular shape, circular arc, and the bottom face, which is towards the center of curvature, it is a flat surface. So this surface, the flat surface, is here, and this flat surface will be now under compression, and the top surface will be in tension. So we can locate the neutral axis. The neutral axis for this cross section will pass through the centroid. So the centroid is located here, and this is the neutral axis. So what is required is we locate the neutral axis, and then we have to find the moment of inertia above this neutral axis for this area of cross section. So we already have done this analysis for centroid of a semicircular area. So the centroid is given at a distance, it will be lying at a distance of 4r by 3 pi. So with that we can find 4 into 12 by 3 pi, we'll get, I'm going to make an error here. So it is 5.093 millimeters. Okay, so radius is in millimeters. So here the location of the centroid will be at, it is 5.093 millimeter. So we can get the distance of the top fiber from the neutral axis, that is C1. So it will be radius minus y bar, so it will be 6.907. So this distance is 6.907, and the distance of the bottom fiber from the neutral axis is C2, and that C2 will be equal to the y bar. So it is 5.093 millimeter. Now what is what we have? What more information we have? We have that information that radius of curvature rho is 2.5 meters. So with that information, we can get the strains in the cross section. So the strain varies according to this. There is a linear variation. It is given as minus y by rho. So rho is the mean radius. So when you say mean radius, it means that radius corresponding to the centroidal axis. Okay, so this is the rho value, which is given as 2.5 meters. So we can write it as 2500 millimeters. So what is the strain at the top? So the strain at the top is given as, instead of y, we have C1, the distance of the top fiber from the neutral axis. So we'll have C1 by rho. So C1 is 6.907 by rho is 2500 millimeters. So we can get the strain at the top, which is 2.763 into 10 power minus 3 units. There is no units, so this is the strain at the top, and this is in tension. The top fiber will be in tension, and because its length is greater than the original length, and the bottom fiber will have C2, that is the distance of the bottom fiber from the neutral axis. So we'll have C2 by rho, and we'll have 5.093 by 2500, and we have this expression 2.037 into 10 power minus 3. So again, the bottom fiber, it is in compression. So the strain variation is shown here. So we have our neutral axis, and the top fiber is in tension and the bottom fiber is in compression. So the top fiber strain is plus 2.763 into 10 power minus 3, and the bottom fiber strain is 2.037 into 10 power minus 3. Now with these strains we can calculate the stresses. We assume that the yield stresses have not been reached, means all the stresses, normal stresses, are within the yield limit. So plastic deformation has not yet started. So for that scenario, we can apply the Hooke's law, and the stress at the top will be E times epsilon at the top, strain at the top. So again, E value is 70 gigapascal. So 70 gigapascal can be written as 70 into 10 power 3 megapascal, and we know 1 megapascal is 1 Newton per millimeter square. So we have 70 into 10 power 3 Newton per millimeter square, and then we have our strain value. So if you multiply all that, we will get 193.4 Newton per millimeter square, and again the top fiber is in tension. And we can get the stress in the bottom fiber, which is in compression, which is given as E times strain at the bottom. So we can have that strain 2.037 in 10 power minus 3, and we get 142.6 Newton per millimeter square, or 142.6 megapascal. So we can plot the stress variation along the cross section. So the top, the neutral axis, the stress is 0. The top fiber will have positive, it will have a tensile strain. So the arrows are moving away from the section, and below the neutral axis there is compression, and the bottommost fiber will have the largest value of compression, and all these stresses are acting towards the cross section because they are compressive stresses. So yeah, we can also we can check whether sigma top by C1 is equal to sigma bottom by C2. It will be satisfied. This equation will be this similar triangles relation will be satisfied. So sigma top by this C1 value is equal to sigma bottom by C2 value. So this is one part of the problem. Now one more thing we can do. We know that radius of curvature is rho. What will be the bending moment we need to apply so that this straight bar will be deformed into this circular arc? So we can find that bending moment m. So how to do that? So yeah, we have our semicircular cross section, and we have applied our bending moment, and as a result the straight bar has deformed into the circular arc. So first thing we need to use is that we have to calculate the moment of inertia. So here we know this E value, we know this rho value, radius of curvature value. We have to find the m value, because we know the area of cross section, and we know the cross sectional geometry. We can find the moment of inertia I about the neutral axis. So our first step is to calculate the moment of inertia. So how to do it? We have this semicircular area. We know the centroid is located here at a distance of 4r by 3 pi. We need to apply the parallel axis theorem. So if you want to calculate I neutral axis, we have to apply the parallel axis theorem. So what is the moment of inertia about this base Ixx? So to know that, we will calculate the moment of inertia. So this is the y-axis, this is x-axis. We will calculate the moment of inertia about the z-axis, out of plane axis. So Iz is j naught. It is given as integral 0 to r, 0 to phi, because r varies from 0 to capital R, and theta varies from 0 to pi. So r square into dA. dA is r d theta dr. So what will happen is r cube dr will get, and r cube dr will be r power 4 by 4, and d theta will vary from 0 to pi, so we will get pi. So this is the moment of inertia about the z-axis, and we know that Ix plus Iy is I naught or Ij. So we can get both Ix and Iy are equal, and we get Ix value as pi r power 4 by 8. So we have to divide pi r power 4 by 4 by 2, and j naught by 2 we will get pi r power 4 by 8, and the Ix value is 8143 millimeter power 4. If you substitute r is equal to 12 millimeters, we get this value. So we have found the moment of inertia about this x axis. Now we want to find moment of inertia about the neutral axis. So we now apply that parallaxis theorem. So I about Ixx will be I neutral axis plus area times y bar square. So that is a parallaxis theorem. Okay, so I neutral axis because this is a centroidal axis plus area times the distance between the two axes. So it will be a y bar square. So we know Ixx is 8143 or pi r power 4 by 8, and area is of a semicircle is pi r square by 2, and y bar is 4r by 3 pi. So we'll get 16 by 9, and since we divide by 2, it will be 8 by 9. So I neutral axis will be pi r power 4 by 8 minus 8 by 9 pi r4, r power 4. So that value of I neutral about neutral axis will be 2275 millimeter power 4. So we have calculated the moment of inertia about the centroidal axis. Okay, that is the neutral axis, and then we can apply our formula. We already know E rho and I, so we can find the m value. So m value will be EI by rho. We send the I to the left hand side and we get EI by rho. So what we'll do, we will write everything in terms of Newton and millimeter. So here Young's modulus is 70 gigapascal. Again, 1 gigapascal is 10 power 3 megapascal or 10 power 3 Newton per millimeter square. I value is written in millimeter power 4, and rho value is 2.5 meters. We write is 2500 millimeters. So if you do all the calculations, we'll get this big number 63725 Newton millimeter. So we can express in Newton meter by dividing by 1000, because 1 meter 1 millimeter convert to meter, so it will be 63.75 Newton meter. Okay, so we can do, we can calculate the stress from the applied moment also. So we can use these two, first term and the last term of this equation. So we can calculate sigma x is equal to my by I. So at the top we'll have sigma x is equal to mc1 by I. So c1 is 6.907 and m is 63725 Newton millimeter. So again we'll get the same answer, 193.4, and sigma bottom will be mc2, the distance of the bottom fiber from the neutral axis, c2 by I. Again we'll get 142.7, which is same as what we calculated before. Okay, so we are getting the same answers, 193.4 and 142.6. Okay, so either way we are getting the same answer. So the moment which we need to apply here is 63 Newton meter. So that and it is in the hogging direction. So it is a negative bending moment. So there is a hogging in the bar, and bottom fiber will be in compression and top fiber will be in tension. So I will. So we can solve one more problem, but this will be little different because we will be looking at a area of cross section which is not rectangular or semicircular. It will be a composite. It's a T section. So I will take a break and then we'll again continue. Okay, so are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So we'll solve this example where the area of cross section is made of two. It's a composite area. So we have this section is called a T section. So this part is called the flange and this part is called the web. Okay, uh, so this is the beam. It is like a cantilever beam. That is, it is fixed at one end and it is free at the other end. And what is happening? We are applying a moment indicated by the arrow. So the moment is m, which is equal to 3 kilonewton meter. So if you place your right hand along the, if you place your right thumb along that arrow, uh, what you'll get is you'll get your fingers will curl. That curling of the fingers is shown by this circular this arrow which is circular. So actually what will happen is this will be producing a hogging moment. That means the beam will bend with the top fiber will be in tension and bottom fiber will be in compression. Okay, because this arrow is acting like this. Background music. Please, I request all of you to please turn off your. Array, who is this person? Tapan Nayak. Please turn off your microphone, man. Okay, so this movement will be this movement will produce a hogging moment. It will produce and the top fiber will stretch and the bottom fibers will compress. So the top fiber will be in tension and bottom fiber will be in compression. So let's look at what is asked. The material property is given. Young's modulus 165 GPa, and what is given? We have to find the geometry is given. The width of the flange, depth of the flange, the thickness of the width of the web, and the depth of the web. It is given. So we are asked to find the maximum tensile and the maximum compressive stress, and what is the radius of curvature, which will be produced by this bending moment M. So the steps are listed here. First step is find the centroid and the location of the neutral axis. Then once you find the centroid, we can find the moment of inertia, second moment of area about the centroidal axis. So that is I neutral axis. So once we know I neutral axis, then we can find the stresses at the top and stresses at the bottom by applying sigma is equal to my by I. And sigma bottom sigma is equal to my by I. And if you want to know the radius of curvature, we will use that relation E by rho is equal to m by I. So we can find the rho value from that formula. So we will follow these steps. So first thing is we will locate the centroid, and then we'll place the neutral axis at the centroid. So this is the cross-sectional area. Composite is a composite area. So we'll divide into two parts. So the flange and the web. So the flange will denote by 1 and the web will denote by 2. So for the flange, the centroid will be located at G1. Its distance. So we'll choose the base as the x-axis and this distance as the y-axis. So the location of G1 from the base we can find out. So we know the total length is 60, and the centroid will lie at half this 20. So it will lie at somewhere here. So 60 minus 10 will be 50. So this distance is 50. So the y coordinate of G1 will be 50. Similarly, y coordinate of the centroid of this web will be 40 by 2. So it will be 20. So that is what is shown here. Y coordinate of G2 is 20. So with this information, now we can apply our centroidal y coordinate of the centroid. We can determine the y coordinate of the centroid by using that a1 y1 plus a2 y2 by a1 plus a2, that expression. So let's list out those areas and the y coordinates. So for the first area, we have b into h is 90 into 20, and y coordinate is 50, and a y is multiply all this these three terms, so we will get 90 to 10 power 3. And for the second area, the width is 30, height is 40, and the centroid is located at 20. So if you multiply all these three terms, you will get 24 into 4 into 3, 12, 12 to 24, 24 to 10 power 3. So we can sum up the areas. So 18 plus 12, it is 30. So 30 into 100, 3000. And AYA we can sum up, we will get 90 plus 24, which is 114 into 10 power 3. So we can find the y coordinate of the centroid, which is AYA by AI summation. So we will get 114 by 3, which is 38 millimeters. So centroid is lying just below this line, line. So we can find the moment of inertia now about that. So the centroid is lying there, and the neutral axis will pass through the centroid. So we are drawing the neutral axis here. Now we have to find the moment of inertia of this composite area about this neutral axis. So again, we'll apply our parallaxis theorem. So we know for the area 1, So the moment of inertia of the total area will be moment of inertia of the first area plus moment of inertia of the second area. So that is what we have, I neutral axis of 1 plus I neutral axis of 2. And for the first area, the centroidal axis is this one, and moment of inertia about the central axis is bh cube by 12. So b is 90, height is 20. So it will be 90 into 20 cube by 12. And we can use, if you use our parallel axis theorem, we'll get I about the neutral axis as Ig1 plus area of this cross section times distance between the centroidal axis and the neutral axis. So Yg1 minus Y neutral axis. So Yg1 is 50 and Y neutral axis is 38. So 50 minus 38 will be 12. So we'll get, you can write Ig1 as bh cube by 12, b is 90 and h is 20, 20 cube by 12, and area is bh 90 into 20, and Yg1 minus Y neutral axis is 12. So this is the value for I neutral axis for the first area. And for the second area, we can do the similar thing. We'll calculate moment of inertia about its centroidal axis plus area times the distance between the centroidal axis and the neutral axis square. So about the centroidal axis, the width is 30 and height is 40. So it will be bh cube by 12, 30 into 40 cube by 12. Area is bh, so 30 into 40, and Yg2 is 20 and Y neutral axis is 38. So the difference is 18, so we'll get 18 square. So we can sum up all these terms and we get something like 868 into 10 power 3 millimeter power 4, or you can write 1 millimeter 10 power minus 3 meters, and we'll get 10 power minus 12 meter power 4, and if you multiply 10 power 3, it will be 10 power minus 9 meter power 4. So you can leave it in millimeter power 4 or like this. So the main thing is we are again applying the parallel axis theorem. So to find the moment of inertia about the neutral axis. So once we have found the moment of inertia about the neutral axis, we can find the stress values. It's very simple. So this is the neutral axis. We'll find the distance of the top fiber from the neutral axis and the distance of the bottom fiber from the neutral axis. So this distance is 38 and total depth is 60. So C1 value will be 60 minus 38, which is 22. And distance of the neutral axis from the bottom fiber is again C2, which is 38. So sigma at the top. So this is a hogging moment. So the arrow, this will produce tension at the top and compression at the bottom. So the stress at the top will be given by this form, by this expression, my by I. So m c1 by I. So m is 3 into 10 power 6. Why you are writing? We are writing in terms of Newton millimeter. So 3 kilonewton meter. So 1 kilonewton meter will be 10 power 3 Newton into 10 power 3 millimeter. So it will be 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. So we'll have m is 3 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter, and then C1 value we have determined, it is 22. So we have 22, and I value we have calculated, it is 868 into 10 power 3 millimeter per 4. So if you do that calculation, you get 76 Newton per millimeter square. So what will happen? We'll have, on the top we'll have millimeter square, bottom will have millimeter power 4. So the resultant will be denominator will have millimeter square. So this quantity 1 Newton per millimeter square is also 1 megapascal. So at the top there is a tension of 76 megapascal. And at the bottom we can apply that formula m y by I. Here y value will be C2, and here the value will get is 131.3 Newton per millimeter square, and this is in compression. So we can just look at the stress profile. So we can cut a cross section somewhere in the middle and see what is the stresses acting at that cross section. So that is shown here. So we have that bending moment M, and at the top fiber is in tension. So we have the arrows away from the section. So at the topmost fiber will have stress of 76, and bottommost fiber will be in compression. So we have the arrow towards the section, and it is minus 131.3, and you can join those two arrows, those heads of the two arrows, and they will intersect the vertical line at the neutral axis. So this line at the neutral axis, the stress is 0. So we see this will produce this moment M is in clockwise direction, and this stress, it will produce a so this momentum is in anti-clockwise direction, and this stress will produce a clockwise moment, and this compressive stress, tensile stress, will produce a clockwise moment, and compressive stress also will produce a clockwise moment. So net movement produced by the stress will be clockwise. So this will balance this anti-clockwise movement which is acting at the left end. Okay, so this is regarding the stress calculation. Then we can calculate the radius of curvature of the bent bar. So the bent bar will curve the center curvature will be lying below the neutral axis. So that is what is shown here. And the radius of curvature, we can apply this formula 1 by rho is equal to E by rho is equal to M by I. So E value, E we are sending to the denominator on the right hand side. So 1 by rho is M by EI. So yeah, all these units are expressed in Newton millimeter. So we'll have 3 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. E value again 165 GPa. So 1 GPa 10 power 3 megapascal or 10 power 3 Newton per millimeter square. And I value we are having 869 10 power 3 millimeter power 4. And if you find the inverse of that, we will get 47.73 meters. So the radius of curvature is this much, and it is lying below because the bend shape will be so the beam will bend like this. Okay, so the curvature will be to the in the below the neutral axis. So it's a very so we have looked at the we have done the stress analysis of a composite area of a beam made of a composite area. Okay, so the main steps will be we are just following those 3 steps. What is it? First step is calculating the centroid of the composite area by applying that A1 y1 plus A2 y2 by A1 plus A2 formula, and then we'll find the neutral axis moment of inertia with the centroidal axis, that is the neutral axis, and for that we will use the parallel axis theorem. And once we do that, then rest of that is simple. We will just calculate that My by I and find the stresses, and we can use E by rho is M by I and find the radius of curvature. So we'll solve another problem. This time it is a symmetric area, but it is a tubular section. Okay, so and we are applying now bending moment to the in this direction, so it will produce a sagging moment. So here what will happen, the top fiber will be in compression and bottom fiber will be in tension. So what is given, we are given the yield stress of the material 275 megapascal. We are also given the ultimate stress 415 megapascal, and then we are given the Young's modulus. So this is a aluminum material. The factor of safety for is given as 3. So what is factor of safety? Factor of safety is the allowable stress. It is the ultimate stress by the factor of safety will give the allowable stress. Okay. So sigma allowable will be sigma ultimate by factor of safety. Okay. So for this factor of safety, what is the bending moment and what is the corresponding radius of curvature? So again, we'll look at that cross section and find the centroid. So centroid will be located at half the height. So it will be at a height of 60. Now we want to find what is the moment of inertia of this tube of this cross section about the neutral axis. So we'll do small thing. What we'll do, we'll take this total area minus we'll subtract this area. So we have this total area and we subtract the inner area. So then we'll get that tubular cross section. So the total area will be 120. Will have a height 120 and width 80, and the inner area will have so there is a uniform thickness. So this width will be 80 minus 2t. So 80 minus thickness is 6. So 80 minus 2 into 6, 80 minus 12. So 80 minus 12 is 68. And the height will be, height of the inner area will be 120 minus 2t. So 120 minus 2 into 6. So 120 minus 12, which is 108. So what we'll do to find the moment of inertia, we'll calculate the moment of inertia of this area and subtract from this the moment of inertia of the inner area. So we'll have dh cube by 12. So 80 into 120 cube by 12 minus 68 into 108 cube by 12. So we get this value, and the units are millimeter power 4. And what is given? The factor of safety is given. So once we know that we have the factor of safety, we can get the allowable stress. Allowable stress will be sigma ultimate by the factor of safety, and that value is 415 by 3, which is 138. So this value is less than the yield stress. Yield stress is 275. So when I apply, so we are doing a elastic analysis. So the material will not yield for this allowable stress. So we can apply our elastic analysis. So in that scenario, we'll have these formulas, these formulas will be applicable. So sigma x pi minus pi is E by rho is M by I. So what we will do, what is known, I is known, and applied moment is known. So we can get the radius of curvature, and we can also get the stress sigma x. So yeah, maybe we can calculate the radius of curvature. So E by rho is M by I. So E is 73 gigapascal. So 73 into 10 power 3 Newton per millimeter square. And M value is given, right? Or not given? Allowable is given. So we still don't know what is the M value. So we have to find the M value for that allowable stress. Okay. So first thing is we have to find the allowable stress. We are given the allowable stress sigma value, but we don't know what is the M value and the rho values. So let's look at the cross section. We cut a cross section, and let's look at the stresses there at the cross section. So we know that since it is elastic, we'll have a linear stress variation. So the top fiber is in compression and the bottom fiber is in tension. And since the area is symmetric, we have C1 and C2 equal to 60. And for this case, we have sigma top also equal to sigma bottom. So sigma top will be M into Y by I. Y is the distance of the top fiber from the neutral axis. So it is MC1 by I. And bottom fiber stress will be My by I, and Y is the distance of the bottom fiber from the neutral axis. So it will be MC2 by I. Now this stress at the top should be less than the allowable stress, and stress at the bottom should be less than the allowable stress. So from this we can get the M value. M value, if you use the first condition, will be sigma allowable I by C1, and if you use the second condition, M value should be less than sigma allowable I by C2. So the maximum allowable moment will be minimum of these two values. For this specific case, both C1 and C2 are equal, so the maximum allowable value will be same. M1 is equal to M2. Okay, so from this we can get the M value. So that M value is instead of sigma, we'll just use that expression. Sigma allowable is 138.33 by 60 is equal to M by 4.38 into 10 power 6, and we send that I value to the left hand side and multiply, and we get 10.1 into 10 power 6 Newton millimeter. So that is coming around 10.1 kilonewton meter. Okay, so then what we can do, then we can find the radius of curvature. So E by rho is sigma top by C1. So sigma top is sigma allowable, and it is 138.33 by 60. So we can get the radius of curvature rho as 73 into 10 power 3 by into 60 by 138.33. So the answer will be in millimeter. If you remove the 10 power 3, you will get in meter. So it is coming around 31.7 meter. So the main thing is you have to write those two conditions, that sigma at the top is MC1 by I is less than sigma allowable, sigma bottom is MC2 by I, which is less than sigma allowable, and from that we can find M1 and M2, and the minimum of this will be the allowable stress, allowable moment. Okay, so for symmetric condition it doesn't matter, because both will reach the stress at the same time. For a given bending moment, the top fiber will reach the same value of stress as the bottom fiber. Okay, so for symmetric it doesn't matter, but if it is non-symmetric, then you have to use this approach. You have to find the minimum allowable moment, and that moment you should use for calculating the radius of curvature and remaining things. Okay. So this is another problem we have solved, where we have applied the flexural formulas. And now we'll discuss about some deformations in the transverse section. So yesterday we were looking at in-plane deformations. So now we'll look at deformations in the YZ plane. Okay, so I will just take a small break and again come back. Okay, so let's look at the deformations in the transverse cross section. So yesterday we were looking at the deformations along the longitudinal in the longitudinal direction. Now the transverse direction will be this will be the surface corresponding to DD prime and the surface corresponding to CC prime. Those are the transverse cross sections. Okay. So how will the transverse cross sections deform? That is a question we'll answer in this discussion. So yesterday we found that so this is the initial length of the bar. It is perfectly straight, and under the action of bending moments, it will bend into an arc of a circle. So this is a plane. E prime. This line corresponds to a plane which is perpendicular to the longitudinal axis, and after deformation, this plane will continue to remain perpendicular to the longitudinal axis. So here the longitudinal axis will be somewhere like this, and it will be still perpendicular to it. And we showed that if any point lying on that plane GG prime, and if it doesn't lie on that perpendicular axis, it will move. It will be to the left for the observer on the left, and it will move to the right for the observer on the right. So it's inconsistent, and it should lie on that E prime plane, on the perpendicular plane. And with that information, we could sketch the grid. So we have that set of parallel vertical lines and horizontal lines which form a rectangular grid. And under the action of the bending moment, the grid will deform. The deformed lines are shown here, and the angle of 90 degrees is preserved even after deformation in the xy plane. So there we came to realize that gamma xy is 0, and so tau xy is 0. And if you look at this beam from the top, so we have our x and z. Actually, g should be in the downward direction, not in the upward direction. So z will be in the downward. So again, we have that bending moment m, and the bending moment here m. And if you look at that grid, rectangle grid, again the angle is maintained 90 degrees. So we say that tau xg is 0. So although the planes are perpendicular to the axis, there might be in-plane deformations. So what do you mean by in-plane deformations? We will look at this figure and I'll try to explain. So what we're having is, we have this plane. Let's say this plane is E prime. Okay, this plane is perpendicular to the neutral surface. So this is the neutral surface. This plane is perpendicular to the neutral surface. So this plane will be part of, if you extend the plane, it will go and intersect at O. And similarly, if you extend the CC prime, this plane corresponding to CC prime, it will go and intersect at O. However, this plane, suppose if it is rectangle, it need not remain rectangle. It can deform, and it will deform. So the reason why it will deform, I'll show through this simple analysis. So we have our sigma normal stress in the x direction. It is not equal to 0, and sigma y is approximately equal to 0, and sigma z is 0. So for this sigma stress in the x direction, we have the corresponding strain, normal strain. Epsilon x is minus y by rho. So what it means is there is compression above the neutral axis and tension below the neutral axis. So that we have done. And yeah, why it is? Because this fiber will be in compression, the bottom fiber will be in tension. So, and the strain variation will be minus y by rho. And what is if you apply the expression for Poisson ratio? So the lateral strain epsilon y, it is minus nu times epsilon x. Okay, so what we'll have if we apply the Hooke's law and all, we'll get this. We can apply the Poisson ratio formula, and we'll get epsilon y is minus nu times epsilon x. So it will be plus y by rho. Similarly, epsilon z will be minus nu times epsilon x. It will be plus y by rho. Okay, so what does these two things mean? Epsilon y is plus y by nu y by rho, and epsilon z is plus nu y by rho. I think there's some issues there with this. I don't know. This something is. Yeah, it's okay. So if the strain is epsilon x in the x direction, then there will be contraction in the y direction. Okay. So that contraction is given by minus nu epsilon x. So that happens to be plus. So plus nu y by rho and plus nu y by rho in the z direction. So let's look at the cross section now. So let's look at that transverse cross section. So we are looking at this transverse cross section. So this is the x direction, this is the y direction, and this is the z direction. So we are looking from the side. So that is the side view. So this is the transverse cross section. And let's look at this expression. Epsilon z is nu y by rho. So what does it mean? So if you move above the neutral axis, there is a positive value. If you move below the neutral axis, there is a negative value. So what does epsilon z mean? So if you have a line element oriented along the z direction, so suppose if you have the line element oriented along the z direction, above the neutral axis it will expand, and below the neutral axis it will contract. Okay, so that is what is sketched here. So if initially it is a form of a square, so above the neutral axis there will be an expansion taking place, that is indicated by these arrows, and the expansion will be highest at the top because y value will be highest at the top fiber. And if you go below, there will be a contraction taking place. So those are indicated by these green arrows, and the contraction is maximum for the bottommost fiber. Okay, so the transverse cross section will not remain a square, it will deform into a trapezoidal shape. And what we can do, we can extend these lines, and they will intersect at some point O prime below the neutral axis. Okay, and we can get the radius of curvature of the this horizontal neutral axis where there is no strain, there is no epsilon z, and that value, what we'll do is we'll send the Poisson ratio nu to the bottom, to the denominator. So it will be rho by nu. So the radius of curvature will be rho by nu. Okay, so that is what is shown here. So if you see carefully, the top fiber has greater length compared to the bottom fiber, and if you join those two lines, they will intersect at O prime, and the radius of the z up to this point, origin, it will be rho by nu. Okay, so that is what is the meaning of this term. Epsilon g is nu y by rho. So this will result in a deformation of the transverse cross section. Okay. And what will happen with epsilon y is nu y by rho? So let's look at that here. So initially what it means is any fiber which is oriented along the y direction, it will extend, it will increase in length above the neutral axis, and it will shorten in length below the neutral axis. So here let's see, we have a small fiber oriented in the y direction. So it will increase in length, that means it will extend along the y axis, and here a small fiber below the neutral axis, it will decrease in length, and the maximum extension will occur for the fiber at the corner. Okay, it will extend the maximum there, and maximum contraction will take place at the fiber at this corners, left and right corners, and that will have the maximum contraction. But the net effect is that the length of the fiber will be in the y direction will remain same, because whatever expansion is taking place here, the same contraction is taking place here. So the net effect is the length of the fiber, total length of the fiber will be same. Okay, so That is what this expression means. Epsilon y is nu y by rho. So there is expansion above the neutral axis, contraction below the neutral axis, but the total length will not vary much. Okay, so this is regarding this transverse deformations in the transverse cross section. So this deformation which is happening, it's also called here the curvature is in the opposite direction to the actual curvature of bending. Okay, so this is also called as anticlastic curvature. Okay, the curvature is 1 by rho prime, which is nu by rho. Okay, because it is opposite to the actual bending curvature. So this is regarding the deformation in the transverse cross section. Okay, so there needs to be more thought. I have not thought this problem fully, but this is what I have. This is my current understanding of it, and I hope it is pretty much okay. There's some issues with this analysis. Why is that? If you look at this figure, right? What does it mean? It means that gamma yz is non-zero, right? I'll stop recording. We can discuss.